Welcome to Mobile World Live. I'm here with Andrus Ansip. He's Vice President of the European Commission. Andrus, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
First of all, I'd like to ask you about your key takeaways from Davos, the World Economic Forum. What most interested you there?
In Davos, we had a really fruitful meeting with Secretary Penny Pritzker, and now everybody knows we already have this EU-US privacy shields replacing safe harbor, which wasn't safe enough.
So we're here at the Mobile World Congress. There's a lot of excitement about 5G, 4.5G, etc. Mobile industry really wants more spectrum. How important is it that they get the 700 megahertz band for mobile broadband?
And this is extremely important for mobile service providers, but it's also important to have predictability, clarity for traditional broadcasters, media service providers. We launched our proposal about 700 megahertz in February, and according to this proposal, telecoms will get upper frequencies. When we're talking about 700 megahertz, it's extremely needed for connected cars, Internet of Things, also for 5G. Market value for telecoms is of those frequencies is approximately 11 billion euros. But also for traditional media service providers, it's really important to have this predictability for investments, for how long period of time they can use those frequencies. And of course, they have to upgrade their technologies, and total amount of money needed for that is also quite remarkable, approximately 800 million euros.
Right, yeah, so some big bets need to be placed, so they need that predictability, as you say. Let's talk a little bit.
But the influence on the whole economy will be much bigger than 800 million euros or 11 billion euros. This total influence on our economy will be much bigger than those amounts. Huge amounts of money.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit about spectrum harmonization across Europe. I mean, one of the things the mobile industry sometimes calls for is a more consistent allocation of spectrum across the member states. Again, how important is that?
Of course, according to my understanding, this is important. It's important to provide clarity to our investors, to our stakeholders, and with this 700 megahertz proposal, we are making picture more clear for all the stakeholders. But it's also important to have more coordination, deeper coordination in the field of spectrum between different member states, because talking about connected cars, for example, high speed is needed in meaning of internet connection. What will happen when those cars, connected cars, will cross borders if in some other country roads are not covered with high-speed networks? So this is important to have this coordination between the member states. I'm mainly talking about timing, duration of licenses, then coverage issues, sharing of spectrum in those fields. I think coordination, deeper coordination between the member states is definitely needed.
Let's talk a little bit about authentication and identification and the use of the mobile channel in that. Big hot topic here at the Congress, but how much potential do you see there to use the mobile essentially as a form of ID, a way to access services?
In some countries, people, they are using mobile identities, and they are really happy about that. In Austria, for example, in the country I know best, in Estonia, people are using mobile IDs, and it really works, and that it's really comfortable. In Estonia, we made this decision to provide single digital identity to our citizens in a very early stage of digital area. And now everybody has smart ID cards. But it took even 6 years for Estonians to start really to use those smart ID cards. in the year 2007, we implemented in Estonia so-called once only principle on the level of law. State has right to ask for information only once. Second time is prohibited. State has to remember and, with my permission, to use this information once again. And it gave real boost on usage of digital signatures. Now Estonians are signing digitally more than 1.3 million times during the week, and population in Estonia is 1.3 million inhabitants. So it's very common to use digital identities, digital signatures in some countries in the European Union, and for me it's quite complicated to understand how in some other countries people, they are not using digital signatures at all. On the level of the European Union, we already have eIDAS directive, which allows mutual recognition of digital identities, but full implementation of eIDAS directive takes some time. And if in some countries they don't have those digital identities at all, about what kind of mutual recognition of digital identities we can talk about then.
Okay, so but it also takes time to build consumer trust and change consumer behavior. That's the Estonian lesson.
Definitely. Trust is a must. If people cannot trust those digital services, they will never start to use those services. We have to create an environment people are able to trust that they would like to use efficient services, but they have to be absolutely sure that their personal information is protected, and that's why I think digital identity, mobile identity is really important for our people.
Okay. Andrus, thank you very much.
You are welcome.